want to count us in?
Yep, we count in like Wayne's World does.
Okay,
So
cool.
in 5, 4, 3.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rhythm and Wit. My name is David Steele, and with me, as always, is
Nick Campbell.
And today we have a very special guest on the show. And here in my living room, this is Grayson Trice.
Hey,
Hello.
Thank you for coming, Grayson.
Long time
Thrilled to
friend.
be here. Yeah, it's great to get to sit down with you all.
Yeah, I remember I ran into you again recently, in the past year with running into your wife doing art shows. And so we kind of connected and started talking, and you hit me up about doing an interview about World Tai Chi Day, which is coming up. World Tai Chi Day, April 27th, Saturday, April 27th at 10 a.m.
Yeah, doors open at 9:30, just so you know. So there's a time for people to mingle and kind of talk to the various instructors. Are going to be there. Sponsors will have tables and that sort of thing, and then we'll have actually do some Qigong and some Tai Chi.
Yeah, there's a lot
going on.
Where's
that at?
It's at the International Dance Studio, which is 3001 Northwest 73rd Street in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Nice, dude, look where we are. You got notes and glasses and everything.
Yeah, I know. It's really scary.
It's really good to see you after so long.
Yeah, man.
It's like, I don't know, I talked to a buddy of mine recently, and it was just like, I see you around doing stuff, and I kind of like see him in the crowd. I'm like, yeah, that guy's still alive. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just keep moving back past each other. But it's nice to be able to pin you down. So World Tai Chi Day. This is international.
Yes.
Yeah, and they set it up, and the idea is.
Well, the idea is it's a worldwide event, and it's going to start. There's more information on the thing, but it starts over in the Orient. We know where Tai Chi began, and then on that day, on the beginning of the day, as people's part of the world moves into that time, there's going to be an event in that area, in the various cities in that area, where everybody's going to get together and do Tai Chi and Qigong all at the same time, with the idea of, for the healing of the world, give the world an energetic shot to its immune system, so to speak.
I love it.
So if somebody who's interested in going, what do you need to bring?
Well, man, really, you don't need to bring anything. Just wear some loose-fitting clothing that you can move in. And if you have one, maybe a meditation cushion, but it's going to be mostly moving forms. I think I'm the only Sifu there this year that's going to be doing a seated meditation to kick it off.
Yeah, what about like a yoga mat? Would that be helpful?
Oh, yeah, yoga mat might be good,
I don't know. I know that, from what little I know about Qigong, it's movements. Is it good? Do you use yoga mats?
Yeah, well, we use yoga mats. I really don't care whether I use a yoga mat or not, but I come from the internal martial arts tradition where you practice on hardwood floors. And you get thrown on hardwood floors and stuff like that. Well, that way your ukemi or your falling technique is good, because if you can take those kind of falls and roll around on the hardwood floor, then you're okay. Usually these days there are mats on the floor because most of us can't handle that kind of consistent training. It tends to run people off.
When did you start?
Oh gosh, I started, I was first introduced to martial arts when I was very young. I had my first karate lesson with Ichiro Takahata here in Oklahoma City when I was 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he was best friends with my uncle and of the family, and I remember Ichiro coming over with these old men from Japan, like Aikido masters and stuff like that, and they'd show us locks and stuff. And I was a kid, I had no idea what was going on.
But you're a kid, you're just like, oh, this is fun, kind of
thing. Well, something about it called to me, and my parents took me out of the classes when I started wanting to go in early so I could do body conditioning. You know, I wanted to like punch hard things and condition my knuckles, and I was 7, like they're like, no, you're not going to start doing that to yourself. But then I started doing martial disciplines, you know, like freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, Sambo. I won a national Sambo championship and stuff like that. And then I got older, I got really sick, and I realized I needed to start doing something to get my health back and my strength and that sort of thing. I'd had walking pneumonia for 7 months and didn't know it. It almost killed me. I went to the hospital when I was coughing up blood. I didn't know I was that sick. And so that was some convalescence, and I found a Aikijitsu dojo near where I lived up in New York, and started taking classes there, and that kind of spun off because I was always, because Aikijitsu is an internal martial art, and I'm not going to get into what's the difference between an external and internal and all that, but safe to say internal martial arts use energy to complement their movement and their fighting. And it's one of those things where it tends to have a beneficial health benefit. The people who stick with the internal martial arts, they tend to stay healthy, live longer. The external martial arts, they tend to have a lot of health problems and, you know, arthritis in their joints and all kinds of strange problems. But we're not going to get into what causes that and the reasons for it. But that's how I got into it, because for me it was always about technique and training and being smart, and you know, I thought it was really very much, you know, that's what made you a good martial artist or anything. But then I started to feel the chi or the energy just from the movements, because they're designed to cultivate and evoke these responses, and I started to feel it, and I didn't know what was going on, and I went to my sensei and said, hey dude, I'm feeling kind of weird and this is what's going on. I said, oh yeah, you're feeling the chi.
Can you kind of pin down the feeling a little bit or associate it with something?
It's kind of like you feel electricity running through your body, and your technique is just super easy. You know, something that I've struggled with, you know, work with, always, even if I was good at it, I found it challenging. All of a sudden, when you got that body movement and the energy, it just works. Really, really done. It almost feels like you didn't do anything.
It's just natural.
Does that, do you use that in your regular life, like using energy, being, what is it? Is it like more being in tune with yourself? Is that the idea? Well,
yeah, you have to become in tune with yourself to be able, you know, this stuff is running through our bodies all the time. It's just we're not aware of it. So one of the things that the Qigong does, the Qigong is the healing side of the internal martial arts. It's also, you might say, the grandparent of the martial arts, because Qigong itself is not a martial art. You know, it's the healing, meditative side, energy work side, in common parlance, energy work side of the martial arts. That's for your healing, your personal transformation, and that sort of thing. And it's something to keep you healthy. It's something to help you live longer. It's something to help you go through life with maybe a little bit more grace. You know, than maybe you would otherwise. And, you know, scientifically, they've proven that people who engage in the practice for 10 minutes a day have a greater feeling of peace and safety, and their just general being. They tend to be more emotionally balanced, meaning that even if they do get angry or something, they come back to center quicker. You know, they're able to get over it.
Control
you know,
your emotions better.
Greater mental acuity, creativity, that sort of thing as a result of it. In the higher levels of the practice, you know, that's when we start getting into the mystical, which results like in Hoshin Dao Qigong. If you want to just stay at the level where I want to be healthier, more focused, happier, healthier, you can do that. But if you want to get in the higher practices, that results in running more energy through your body in a specific way, which creates, you know, but you know, in psychology, you know, they call it transcendent experience, where you go someplace that, or in your mind, in yourself, wherever it is, and that's oftentimes called a Kundalini experience, where a massive amount of energy races up your spine, hits your brain, flies out of the top of your head, and you go with it.
Do you feel it? Have you felt that?
Yeah, I went through the Kundalini about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. I'd been studying with my teacher, and And like I told you, I was one of those guys. It's like, man, it's technique, it's training hard. That's what made, and all that. But he was a very accomplished internal martial artist. And I came across his book, Path Notes of an American Ninja Master. He studied Tagaku-ryu Ninpo, which is real ninjutsu, and he was the direct student of Masaaki Hatsumi, who's the 34th Grandmaster of the Tagaku-ryu Ninpo in the Bujinkan in Japan. And so I had no idea what I was getting into, so I read his book and I was like, you know what, and at the time I was serving as an Eastern Orthodox priest, and yeah, and I was, and I went and I talked, to my bishops and my spiritual, and I said, oh, yeah, just as long as you're not summoning demons, we don't care, go for it, kind of deal. And I remember reading his book. I was like, you know what? All right. He said that he was like really meditating hard, and he was doing this, and so I started meditating, and I started doing just the exercises that he had in the book, and then I started to feel even more things. Right? Things started to happen as a result of the practice. And so I literally, and this was back when the internet was like the CompuServe days.
Yeah.
And I had to find him. I somehow tracked him down and found an email address attached to the Bujinkan, and I emailed him and said, hey, I got your book, and I've been doing the exercises, and things are so, and he started talking to me. It was really crazy. Yeah, that's how my first contacts, with my teacher were through the internet, and then I started talking to him on the phone occasionally, and he was always back and forth doing teaching all over the country, and so when he'd come up to New York City and stuff, he'd give me a call and say, hey, I'm going to be in town, do you want to come train? And so I would, and it just kind of went from there. But with me, I was like, all right, he said in his book, all right, I'm going to give this 3 months. I'm really going to do it. And I meditated constantly. I went, 3 months I went through the Kundalini. It was like, boom. Wow. And that changed my perspective on the world, life, everything irrevocably.
Now, you mentioned the meditation. I love hearing all that. It feels like, because I feel like personally there's something maybe I'm not in tune with, like with my, here recently, I'm more of a push past kind of guy. Like, all right, I'm hurting, let's keep going. We gotta make the money, gotta raise these kids.
That's a Hoshin model. Keep going.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, and because endurance.
Yeah.
Just if this is, to use a Buddhist term, if it's your dharma, in the West we call it, if it's your spiritual will, your true reason for being here.
Yeah.
You're the thing that you can do that benefits you the most and everybody else around you. That's a good way of looking at it. Then you have to keep going. You have to have endurance. You don't stop. No matter what comes up, whatever obstacles or challenges you face, that's okay. You keep going.
Man, I had an Uber driver. And this is so crazy. All right, I had an Uber driver, and me and Liz were in Colorado. She was doing a Comic-Con, and so I was just loose in a city, and so I was just kind of walking around. I like to do this thing where I just like urban walk, meet people, talk, and then just like wherever I'm at, urban adventure, that's what I call it. So I just kind of put on a backpack and run out there and just kind of walk around the town if I'm new in there,
Yeah.
So like if I have a show in Lawton, I'll be like, let me go up there 3 hours early, kind of meet these people,
Yeah.
Go to a Whataburger,
Yeah.
But see if I can find some drugs.
Yeah.
But we go up there, and I call the Uber driver to take me to the Comic-Con. And I was just like, hey, we were talking, and there's this like question I like to ask some people whenever I meet them, and I feel like there's like a ping. I was like, I like this guy. There's something about him, or I like this person.
Yeah.
And I always go, what's your main takeaway so far from life? Like, as you've lived this far, if you could give one piece of information to somebody right before you go, that you made it this far, what would it be? And he was like, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Don't stop. So I ran into this problem. I've been dealing with some health stuff, and but that idea still resonates. It's like for some reason it's kind of like latched into my brain. So when I get like down, I'll be like, keep moving.
Yeah.
Just get up, keep moving. It's like it almost feels effortless. It's like, oh, this is the right answer. And just because it's some guy I met in an Uber, and then also I keep hearing it in the world.
But
some of our greatest lessons come from unexpected places, and it can be a random offhand comment. Some of the things that have really made a deep impression on me are, just some kind of weird random conversation I had with a stranger
Yeah.
who says the right thing at the right time.
I love that. And with you saying it, again, it's like I heard it again. My wife
Yeah.
told me I hear it in the Mastery book too by Robert Greene.
Yeah.
It seems like everywhere I'm going, it's telling me that, and it's like I need it right now.
Yeah, well, and that's, you know, when you start doing energy work, meditating, there's this thing that's called the shadow that pops up. And, you know, and it's a pretty kitschy term these days, shadow work. And so one ways of looking at what the shadows, it's all your nonsense. You know, it's all the trauma, it's all the bad thinking, bad habits, bad habituations, on a practical, maybe psychological level, emotional problems that come up as a result of doing the energy work, because our body and the various centers in our body store trauma and memories in our muscles, in various places. You start doing the energy work, it starts flushing all that stuff out, and so it all bubbles up to your head, and you start feeling these things, because, you know, the way in the West we deal with stuff is we just suppress it. We don't deal with it, ignore it. And people wonder why they're an emotional basket case the majority of the time. And we all have a really nice veneer going on, but everybody's like on the inside screaming, you know, because of everything. And they don't know why they're so stressed and tense and upset.
That's what I like about, I mean, Qigong for sure, but I know that, I mean, what I know is like it helps you move the energy through your body and kind of move it around. Or I do a lot of meditation, mindfulness meditation, and there's a lot of it that I like to do is just focusing on different parts of the body, just stillness, but you're moving your concentration on different parts of your body, and you start to feel like, oh, there's something in my stomach. It's not like a stomach pain or some, you know, in my legs. It's like, I think I carry a lot of stress in my legs personally. I don't know. I've never thought about that until, you know, recently, but it's like moving my legs helps me get stressed out less, you know, but I mean, moving, and certainly with moving your body and doing different things definitely can help you on an emotional level that we don't realize. But certainly meditation is a part of that. But yeah.
Well, I read from your teacher, his name is Glenn Morris, PhD. I found some information that he wrote online.
Yeah.
That was really, it was kind of like this book that he put together with another guy. Where is it?
Yeah, he had sent it to me.
Yeah, Dr. Glenn Morris, Wayne Oliver, and James Dow.
Yeah, I know Wayne Oliver. He's a really cool guy. James, I might have met, I might not, but yeah.
So they wrote this manual of information, and it's basically how to get to the Kundalini. And what it had is it's really great intro of just like, hey, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that it said was, the idea is to consolidate the health of the body, breath, and mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to remember that the body knows better than the mind. Right? And so it's kind of just tuning into the body and kind of keeping that,
feel it.
if I'm wrong, all right, keeping it in tune, keeping that pathway clear.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great way of putting it is, you know, we tend to have a disconnect. We spend most of the time in our head and we don't pay attention to our body. We just assume it's there and it's going to do what we want, and we tend to ignore it. And so, yeah, I mean, there's three places that you have to think about health. You have to take care of your body, which has a direct, and the ancients understood that they might not have had the scientific knowledge that we have now, but they knew what they were talking about, so you get a lot of flowery language. It might seem a bit mystical, but really what they're doing is they're describing the energy in a very abstract way and how it works. But yeah, you have to start with the body, because the idea is, and we hear this theory all the time, there's even some CIA papers that have been released talking about the idea that everything is somehow a fractal hologram, you know, that's reflected. And so the idea is the human body is a reflection of the greater universe, and vice versa. And as a result, you first go into your body, get in touch with your body, and start, you know, working on that mind-body connection. and the health of the body, which then affects the health of the mind, and back and forth. You get this feedback, but you, as a result of the practice and getting in touch with your body, you come to a deeper understanding not only of yourself, but also how the world at large around you works as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing something, so I was halfway paying attention, but I love that whenever you said the mirror, or it's like the reflection, because I think that's what I think of all the time about art in general, but it's like art is a reflection of ourselves that we create and put into the world. But there's something also I think a lot about is that every human is just a unique expression of the earth itself. So we're all we're all one thing. We're all this globe of life and energy in the earth. And it's like, I don't know, just
well, we're all a bunch of stardust, traveling through the universe in a big spiral that's doing this, but somehow orbiting the sun, and the sun's doing this too. I mean, it's crazy when you start thinking about it.
We get so much energy from the sun, and it's like the sun, we wouldn't be here without the sun at all. It's like the sun is so important to our existence, and I think that a lot of people do, I do certainly, but a lot of people don't think a lot about how important it is to get sunlight. It's like if you're trapped inside the house for so much, like many people have been in the past 5 years or 3 years.
So a lot of people work from home now. And
it's like we're starting to change more into this society of indoor. We don't need to go outside at all anymore. If we don't, we do for our health, but like.
I know people who avoid being outside. They go outside only if they have to.
It's so important to use the sun for what it is, and it's like, helping us be healthier and be more of what we actually are, I think.
It's funny, we even have an exercise in Hoshendao Qigong called Crane Opens Wings, Look at that sun.
Yeah.
One of the best places you can guess is to do it in the morning outside while you're looking, in the sunlight.
There's something to that too. I mean, I've gotten more into scientific, like neuroscience and stuff about the sun and its effects on us in the morning, and how it can trigger like cortisol release and hormones and stuff that our natural body is supposed to do.
Also helps regulate your circadian rhythm. To get 10 minutes of sun in the morning when you first wake up, just kind of be out in it.
So that's something that I've focused a lot on, in the past year. But it's interesting that they probably never knew why that, or specifically why that technique you were talking about was, but it's like, it does. It helps you just set your day, I think. It helps you get those energy levels when you're supposed to. I don't know, I like it. And all of this stuff, too. It's like meditations and all these things are like thousands of years old. It's like these people have figured this stuff out a long time ago. Maybe not truly figured it out why, but they have.
Oh, I kind of think when it comes down to it, the really advanced practitioners, they knew why, because they had experienced it, but at the same time, the way they expressed it was different, and I think that's one of the things. And what's interesting is that these practices are extremely old.
Yeah.
And from the anthropological evidence, they think that the practice of Qigong and the stuff could be anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 years old. Yeah. So that's like, really, that's prehistory.
Yeah.
And that Qigong comes from the shamanic practices of the indigenous people in China. And so that's where they think that, because they found pottery and pots and stuff of people doing Qigong that are that old.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that you end up in the same place. Like, back then, it was listening to your body, right? Listen to your body, because, there wasn't a lot of distractions, Maybe you go do your work, you go hang out with your family, you do your thing. You're more in tune with maybe even the world around you, because you're not just consuming without knowing where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And so you kind of move through life with an understanding of where you are, and where you come from. And then you go, I think it's a little easier to go inside and kind of just, feel what's going on in there and maybe be more in tune with your body. But they still found the same place that we're doing now, but with science. It's like we're trying to prove them,
the science
right.
And for so long, science, it was like, oh, that's a bunch of poppycock. This is a bunch of nonsense. But then the scientific evidence started to mount. And that's one of the reasons what made, you know, my teacher Glenn so unique was that he had a PhD in psychology, a science doctorate in psychology, and then he had a doctorate in philosophy as well, and he was a college professor on top of it. He was also for a while the psychologist for General Motors.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I mean, he was, and so he was a big fan of the scientific method, and so he used that in refining the Hoshin system of Qigong. You know, he double-blind tests, you know, what exercises really weird, because there's a lot of exercises that made its way in the scrolls that are what I could call, you know, for lack of a better word, filler exercises, something to kind of like holding exercises that really aren't going to advance the student, but it's something for them to do and things like that. Well, Glenn was all about, I want to get rid of all that stuff, you know, and he wanted to give people a direct path to being healthier on all levels. And if they wanted to go for it and peek, you know, through the veil, so to speak, they had that to do as well. Qigong has often been called like Chinese yoga or Chinese tantric yoga, and you know, as in the, you know, so there's a correlation between tantric Buddhism, and so it goes on and on and on. Tantric Hinduism, and he wanted to distill it and get rid of the language, not the fluffy language, but be able to present it in such a way that the Western mind could understand it and practice it and actually get something from it.
Yeah.
Instead of hitting that wall of, oh, this is a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, that's what I like. I think that it's something interesting a lot about with this, the more, you know, the scientific community looking at these things, and it's like people are now like refining them, even making them even better, because we do understand more of the chemical levels and the things that it does to our brain and body. So
well, you know, it's like just to talk about, you know, the science catching up. Me and Gwen Davis, who is from a different school, the Supreme Science School, we did a 9-week intensive course on the correlation between modern science and the mystical approach of Qigong and meditation. I delivered the mystical. She's a licensed therapist, you know, body therapist and stuff like that. And she brought the science, and some of the interesting things about it is like at every place where traditionally like the so-called chakras are, there's a major nerve complex, bundle of nerves that's doing a bunch of processing. And also, you know, in the system I teach, we say that there are 3 major energy systems, or I guess what you call generators in our bodies. There's the hara, or the dantian, which is your belly. There's the heart area, your chest, the heart chakra, if we're going to talk about the Hindu system. And then the third eye, or what the Chinese call the crystal palace, which is the hypothalamus pituitary complex. It sits right in the middle of your brain. Well, what's interesting is that gray matter runs between that complex, the heart complex, and the gut, and nowhere else in the body. And the ancients said you had 3 brains. And well, now the science is saying is that, well, you have gray matter in these 3 places. And nowhere else in the body. It's all connected. Also, a funny thing is, then you have 7 major bundles of nerves that are all connected to your brain, that are doing a bunch of processing, the 3 chakras, and they all said, you know, that's part of your conscious structure, how you think. It's happening on all, your body's doing all this thinking, and they even found, and you can find, I can't remember where it came from, but they found that organs, you know, like the 5 yin organs and stuff like that, have way more nerves and stuff in them than they thought initially, and this was a study that was done decades ago. And so they said it's really strange. We didn't realize there were so many nerves and so much processing going on in the organs. It's almost like they're acting like independent brains.
Nice. Yeah. Well, the gut affects your whole body.
Oh yeah,
That's
your
what
gut
I'm
health
learning.
gets off.
Yeah.
You're gonna start having all kinds of
I quit
problems.
eating gluten.
Yeah.
And it really like
Change your life.
cleared my body from mixed signals, it felt like.
Huh.
You know, because I'm thinking I was always kind of fighting this weird battle in my butt where it's like, oh, well, I couldn't get the right nutrition because my intestines were swollen. I could, you know, and it was, you know, it was making things different. My stomach biome was messed up because of the sugar and the gluten and, you know, high sugar, high carbs. And I feel like when I cleared that out, I could hear my body more. You know,
Yeah.
like I can hear like, oh man, my stomach hurts. Like it used to just be like, well, it hurts all the time. Why would
Yeah,
that
you
be a
don't-
thing?
Yeah, take some Tums.
Yeah, quit being a baby.
You kind of have to clear out the cobwebs. That's what I think about. I mean, when I started doing mindfulness meditation, it's been, well, not less than a year actually, but it was something for me. It was like that, and journaling too is some similar thing. But it's like you're kind of clearing away all this junk that's clogging your mind and your emotions. And then it's like once you do that and you learn to listen to your body, then you can, see things clearer pretty much, I think.
Well, whenever you eat better,
Yeah.
maybe there's not as much static.
Right. Yeah.
Because
exactly.
it's not fighting
it's
as
kind of
much.
the cobwebs, static, any kind of just nonsense.
That's
that
been
you
my
don't need.
experience.
Well, and if you don't feel good, if you have health problems, that affects your mental landscape and how you view things. Because you don't feel good, you
Right.
get grumpy, you get pissed off, whatever. You're not thinking straight, and that's one of the things. So when we start, it kind of brings me back to what you're talking about, the consolidation of the health, the mind, and the breath. And what's interesting, and I could get into the metaphysics of that. Well, there's this thing called the three treasures, which is related to the three energy systems I just referenced, and the hara is, if we tie it to what's called the mother elements, water. And that happens to be where the water chakra is, by the way. Yeah, one of the, and that's the energy that creates the physical body, and that's what they call the Jing Qi. That's the function of the divine feminine, or the feminine principle. The yin gives form, and then fire is the brain, right? And that's considered to, that's our thinking process. A lot of people, a lot of religions or mystical systems say that that's kind of the seat of the soul, whatever, and that's fire. Well, that's the father, the yang expression. Well, then you have the human, which is the heart. The human treasure is found in the heart. That's where you experience that feeling of unconditional love. And most of our emotional feelings are processed. We feel them very strongly in our chest, whether it's a good emotion or a bad emotion, and that's the Mercury. So that even ties, or air in the Eastern system, which in West would be Mercury. So it's all in agreement, even like with Western Hermeticism, which kind of blows my mind, the idea of the three mother elements and how they interact to create the five elements, which creates the entire physical world.
What are so you said the five, I have a few things. I went to your YouTube and kind of went over a few things. And one of the things you mentioned was the 6 perspectives.
Yes.
Yeah, and being childlike.
Yeah.
And how does that fit into this?
Well, it fits into it, for one, is that's what I'm going to be sharing with everybody at World Tai Chi Day, is I'm going to share the 6 perspectives with everybody, and I'm going to give a meditation on the 6 perspectives in the 3 energy centers.
Okay.
Now, the 6 perspectives are very important in the sense that they help us to condition the energy that we're cultivating and work with. It also makes the shadow work that comes up a lot easier to deal with. Soke, my teacher, used to say all the time that to successfully navigate the shadow work that comes up is to engage in positive thinking. And so we're not talking about, like affirmations or something necessarily, if you want to use those, of course, but it's not saying I'm good enough, people like me, I'm nice, it's not that. It's like cultivating a positive state of mind. And so the way that we go back to that is we invoke what's called the principle of child's mind. Takamatsu sensei, who is Hatsumi's Soke, who taught Hatsumi, who taught my teacher stuff, he said that you should try to approach your life, and particularly your practice, from the point of view of a 3-year-old child.
I love that.
And the reason being is a 3-year-old child has absolutely 0 filters, no conditioning, sees the world exactly as it truly is. They can see into the so-called other realms, all the way to source. They're still just totally plugged in. They haven't been conditioned. They haven't been put into somebody training, as Ram Dass would call it, or, hasn't been any trauma, like abusive parents or society or school or other kids or social programming. These are the rules. This is how you think about it. This is religion. There's none of that with a 3-year-old child. They're just there. And what's interesting about that scientifically is that 3-year-old children have way more neural synapses than we do. They process way more information than we do. As we get older, as we reach the age of reason around 7, during that process and because of experiences and program, synaptic pruning takes place, and so you lose more and more synapses because you don't need that information anymore and you're trying to interact with this world. And so as you get older, you get cut off. And by the time you're 7, you're pretty much here in this realm. You're cut off from source, all, seeing the angels and all that stuff that people write about being a kid, their visions, their way, that's all gone pretty much. And so when we approach everything from the point of view of child's mind, what is a child? A child has perspectives. There is a perspective, and that's where the 6 perspectives, the 6 perspectives of a 3-year-old child are love, kindness, courage, openness, gentleness, and creativity. If you watch how a 3-year-old runs through life, that's exactly what it is. They're very loving, they're kind, and they're absolutely courageous. They have no concept of death. They don't care if they live or die, and they can just deal with anything, no matter how great or how horrible. And they're very open, they're gentle, and they're very creative. And so we try to cultivate these principles, these perspectives, because a lot of times you can find them in books and they're usually called laws or virtues or something. No, it's a perspective. It's a way that you filter. This is a filter that we're going to cultivate in how you look at and interact with the world and yourself. And so that's what we're going to be doing at World Tai Chi, at least what I'm going to be sharing is the 6 perspectives and a meditation on that, because when you start, ties into consolidating the health of the mind. Because through positive thinking, along these lines, you slowly over time begin to change yourself in the way you view and approach the world. And it's a practice. People have to remember this. This isn't a religion, it's non-religious. It's a practice. You try the ideas, I'm going to think about these, I'm going to meditate on them, I'm going to try to express these in my day-to-day life. And over time, that begins to change you. And as a result, because you're changing, it's going to change the way other people interact with you.
Because you're changing, you're affecting the world around you too. I mean, that's something that, like I said, I started seriously doing mindfulness meditations about last summer, and it's like my life has changed dramatically. It's in that time, a lot because of how people interact with me, because it's I don't know, it's just like you said. I'm doing things a little differently, maybe not even that much differently, but enough to make a big difference, I think. And it's just the opportunities that I have now, I think that are just stuff that I've always wanted and tried to go towards, and then now I feel like I'm starting to see things clearly. I can see what I need to do and get it done, and not stop myself. There's so much of anxiety and self-doubt and shame and all this stuff that I did a lot of work to get rid of. But and like you said too, it's a daily practice. Usually it's these days I don't meditate every day, almost every day. I do 5 days a week at least. The weekends I kind of don't need to as much, though. I feel like it. I don't know, but it's whenever I need to, I do it. It's I can tell too. It's I need to sit down, and it's when I start to get unfocused, pretty much. It's when I start to lose focus, I'm something's off. I don't know what it is, so I just need to sit down and sit for half an hour or whatever, and try to practice and do some kind of.
Well, that's what I love about Qigong, is it's a practice that you weave into your daily life as you're doing stuff.
That's
while whether you're working, driving a car.
What's an example?
A good example of, is I can do my baby's breath And at this point, I've made it my everyday breathing. You know, the what's sometimes called
Yeah,
belly breathing you
yeah.
do when you're sitting and doing formal meditation or traditional meditation. It's called Zen breathing, Buddha breathing, belly breathing, bellows breathing.
I
We
think
call
it's
it
the
in our
way-
practice baby's breath. It's actually how,
Yeah.
if you watch an
Right.
infant breathe, they breathe from the belly. The belly gets real big and then they contract and it gets big. And that actually pulls more air down into the lungs. Another thing that you can do is, like when you're walking around, keep the tip of your tongue touching the roof of your mouth. What that does is that engages on a scientific level.
Yeah.
That engages with the parasympathetic nerve response,
Yeah.
which creates a feeling of safety and calmness. And on an energetic level, that connects, you have two major, what you call, energy channels that run up the front and the back of the body by touching the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. That connects those two, and that makes it possible for you to ground. So if you're running energy, doing Qigong or whatever, stuff doesn't, the Chinese, there's actually a proverb that says, don't cook your brain. You know, so by touching the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, that gives the energy a place to go and ground out through your feet.
And that's just
And
kinda
out your
something-
hands, yeah.
Like you're feeling like maybe I'm a little stopped up here, and
Yeah.
let me kind of take a
Yeah.
little moment. Yeah, I love the idea of practice. This idea of like giving your and I think this comes from being of the childlike mind. But it's like it almost feels something I did with comedy versus music is I kind of put a lot of bad habits around music. Does that make
I wrote a
sense?
song about it. It's called Bad Habits. You know, it's like,
I'm taking on bad habits, I've been falling away. Taking on bad habits and I'm forgetting. Taking on bad habits just to find my way.
what was it? Is taking on bad habits,
Yeah.
trying to find my way, or something like
that- was that what
taking
that
on
was about?
taking on
Yeah.
bad habits
Yeah.
tonight. If
Yeah.
you've seen the truth, let me know.
Mine was hung up in I still have it. Like I have a hard time writing not as much anymore, but writing lyrics because I was afraid of not doing well
Yeah,
or
you know,
creating a song line.
self-doubt.
But in order to get to the places like you're saying, you have to be free. You have to be free of fear, and you have to have this kind of like attitude of play, which comes from the term practice. This idea of like coming to this, we're just practicing.
Yeah,
We're
it's
just
no big
enjoying
deal.
this. Yeah, if we mess up, it's just practice.
Yeah,
And
but
if
nobody-
everything is practice for the next thing,
Yeah.
then nothing really matters.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Like,
saying?
I think I look at meditation for me. It's a practice, but it's like, and they teach this too in meditation. But it's like you're sitting and making yourself calm so that whenever you're in a real state of stress where you might need to do something quickly and think on your feet, you can. You know.
Well, the thing
Otherwise,
is, and
without-
something else is that if you've done the practice, from a martial arts perspective, we call that fighting from the void. In other words, you just respond appropriately to whatever the situation is, and you don't even have to think about
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's
You know.
my experience with comedy now.
Yeah.
It's like I was like, I'm not gonna give myself fear. If this is supposed to be for fun,
Yeah.
I'm gonna live the rest of my life. And I put it like this: like I'm an electrician, I'm a dad. This has to be fun, or I'm
Yeah.
not doing it. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, that's a good way to approach anything. As I
Yeah.
remember when Seema, my wife, Ophelia, she's the Seema of the dojo.
Okay.
And we can get into terminology some other time.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate her support with this
Yeah.
because she's been an immeasurable help, even though she's super busy with her
Yeah,
art
she
and
does a
everything.
lot.
But she helps out and she practices alongside me and all that. And it's pretty darn cool. Is that I remember when we first got together, I was like, as long as this was fun,
Yeah.
I'm down,
Yeah.
and we were both kind of saying that's a good way to, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems, you're not going to have
Yeah.
disagreements, but, there's got to be that love, and there needs to be a sense of adventure and play, no matter how mundane your life is.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's really important, playing. They've shown that if people are playing, they or there's a feeling of play, you know, to it, that they learn quicker and they progress faster.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that a Mahoshin motto, there's a second part to it that I didn't share. It's keep going, keep playing.
Yeah.
I love
Exclamation points on both
He's
of
added
it.
to your
I'm writing that down. I'm gonna tattoo it on my arm.
All I was gonna say about comedy is I look at comedy, doing stand-up comedy is it's the difference between music too. Is that like music, you sit in a rehearsal space or whatever with your band or by yourself even, and you rehearse the songs and you practice by yourself. That's how you get better. And then you go to the show, and that's the show. It needs to be good, you know. It needs to be well practiced. Comedy's not really like that. Comedy's, you get up on stage, that's where you're practicing. That's where you can't do it in a room by yourself. You have to do it in front of people to get better at it and to learn how to get better at it, because it's an interaction with the audience. And so maybe could be, I just thought of whenever you were talking about that, but it's completely different in the mindset of whenever you go on stage versus music and comedy for you. I'm sure it's like you're going to getting up there to play and practice and not to like, oh, I've got to play these songs. I got to remember all these lyrics and do all this stuff.
There's a certain amount, something I learned along the way. Because I told myself I'm going to build good habits around this.
Yeah.
And it was, don't worry about the outcome. As soon as you start worrying, good or bad, as soon as you start worrying about the outcome, then you have an expectation, and that expectation can be dashed, and that kills your freedom on stage because you're not free. And and the void that you're talking about, if I get it right, I can tell myself, it doesn't matter. You get up here, and your goal is to make these people laugh. Now, if I have prepared stuff that works, great. But if it's not, then we got to figure something out. Because it's just like in a conversation. Like, I want to make this person laugh.
Yeah.
I don't mean to. I'm just really good at it because I've had to in my life. It's just what we did in my house. You know?
Yeah.
That's the way you
And
learn
so,
to survive.
What I do, but that whenever I'm going good, I'm not even thinking.
Yeah.
I'm just there with them.
Yeah.
And I'm immediate. That's dashed as soon as I start going. I hope I do good.
Yeah.
I hope I do this. Or I want to be better than that guy. It's like, well, then you're not at service to the thing that you're doing, which is making them laugh. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
The purpose. Something similar to what you said. You don't feel good, or at a certain point you were clogged up and you were out here making moves, and then you don't feel like you really changed anything of yourself, but from the place that you're coming from, the purpose, like you're in a better place. Your actions, how you speak and how you talk to people are just even so slightly more better, you know. And so that's what I try to do. And then now with my music, I'll do it. I won't have any judgment. I'll sing in my house. I used to be kind of nervous about singing in my house for my kids. What if they think I'm dumb? It's like, you know what I'm saying? And to my kids.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is like 7, 8 years back, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, she was a baby. She ain't going to remember. You know, like you just go, and then now my kids sing. It's a beautiful place to be. They join in.
They see you sing before. They probably didn't.
I sing the wrong words. They think it's okay to sing the wrong words.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it is.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and that's the funny thing about it. You know, I can identify with what you're saying. Is I remember I felt like there was a big impasse, you know, when I was, you know, writing music. But you know what changed it all is the minute I started liking my music.
I love it. Yeah.
Instead of tearing it apart and writing, well, other people gonna like this? No, I started writing things that I liked.
Yeah.
And I liked it, and I was happy with the way I was playing and stuff. And then guess what happened?
It came through.
Everybody else liked it.
Yeah, they can see, and they can. I think people, whenever you do stuff for yourself in any art form, I think that whenever you're making it for yourself and not for what other people might want, then people see that. And then even if they don't like it, they see your passion. They're like, well, he clearly really likes what he's doing, so they appreciate it in some level, at least, if they don't like it also. And I think that, too, you can see the joy on someone's face, and then you're automatically going to feel that joy, I think.
And you can feel it, you know, you can tell you know, if we want to stay on music, you can tell the artist or the musician or whatever that's trying too hard or doesn't believe in themselves or whatever. I think one of the greatest lessons I ever got was going and playing festivals and having dudes come up and say, hey man, we got a set, you want to play?
Yeah.
You want to sit in? And of course, you know, it's like, oh God, these guys are really good. I don't think I'm on their level, but doing that taught me how to improv. And we had some great sets. But then what was really cool was I was living out on Festival Land, which happened to be Indian Holy Land, and there was an old shaman that lived out there, and I got to study and practice with him. And he's a weird cat. He's a visual artist, but he works in every medium: sculpture, painting, carving wood, metal.
Do it all.
And then he can play any instrument, but he's not a musician, has never taken a lesson.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would hang out with him and his wife, and we'd do shamanic things together, and he'd teach me, and then we'd just start recording music, you know, and, you know, that went with the ritual, and then we ended up, and then the next thing you know, you had albums that were being just put out with all Orange Media, and the stuff about it was all emergent. There was no practice involved. There was no progressions, no improvisational progressions that we're going to utilize. Is literally do the ritual, hit the button, and start recording it. And whatever came out with everybody that was involved is what came out. Wow. No overdubbing. Nothing like
just
that.
Pure expression.
Yeah, there's if you wanted to check that kind of a project out, there's a series of videos that go with it, and you can find them on YouTube. It's called Hit Machine, and it's on Bandcamp. Okay. All that stuff is one pass, recorded live, totally emergent, no patterns, no nothing, and you'll kind of, and it kind of really catches that shamanic vibe. It's like it was done. It's, you know, shamanic journeying is what's going on in those albums. And it's pretty. So you might enjoy that.
Yeah, check it out.
I love that. You know, something that I've read. I mean, that you can. They used to do drum circles, right? Or they still do, but they were different back then, obviously, because that was their entertainment. But like they were doing
much
drums.
more involved or more prominent.
That was the night.
Yeah.
You know, so you're doing drum circles, and there were people dancing, right, and people playing different things, but nobody knew what was going on. Right?
Yeah.
So you would just play, and the drums would affect the people, and the people would affect the drums.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
kind of like Armand was saying.
Yeah, we talked to him last week, and it was something he does is like that kind of interaction with the crowd and kind of vibing off of. I mean, it's any kind of DJ, I think, which was interesting to learn about. It's like, if you're a club DJ, you're playing music and seeing how the crowd responds to what you're playing, and then you make decisions based on that. It's so fascinating.
And I think that what I really love about that idea is that it becomes less of scales, progressions.
In theory.
In theory, and more of like, what can I do?
Right.
I can do 3 chords.
I think the key.
You know, and then you do the 3 chords and go, well, let me see what I can do with this to affect these people. And then how they react is like, oh, they liked D and E minor together.
Yeah.
Let me kind of, all right, we keep going back and forth. And they're like, yeah, you can see them moving. And then what do you do next? You go, oh, okay. And so the play, the interaction with the world is in how well you are with how in tune you are with your instrument, how much you can represent what's in your head quickly becomes, even if you can only talk that language slowly, you can still affect the room.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I mean, even if you know only a couple of chords.
Yeah, you can play badly. That's still affecting the room.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah.
And it's all about being intentional about it.
Yeah.
You know, how do I want to move these people?
And learning how to get better at it, how to affect them. I mean, I think it's just
your music filtered through your perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But I mean, a few curiosities I had was the meditation. When you started doing your meditation, and you opened this book, and you're starting to learn, and then versus now your meditation, what would you suggest for someone? Because the problem with me is I like the idea of meditation, but I feel like I get there with writing.
Yeah.
Because I'll shut my brain off, tell myself, just go with your hand. Like, I don't even want to hear the communication that's happened between these two. I just want it to go.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's how Maisoke wrote his books.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he automatically wrote them. He didn't think about it. He just wrote them. And then we'd go back through and edit them.
Yeah.
You know, he might have had, you know, would start writing. That's how he did all of his books.
And that and when I get that out, I see something more than what I'd even. It sucks because like you said, when you ruminate, it can get, you're like, oh, this one thing, and then you see it, and you're like, oh no, it's not. Look at all this other stuff. It's so great, you know, like.
Well, getting trapped up in your mind, you know, that's kind of a form of shadow work. Like I shared this with the class is, you know, I have, one of the things I do is, because I'm trying to get this out to as many people as possible, is like for $5 a month, people can be a member of the dojo, and they can either Zoom in and live stream the class with us and practice with whoever's actually at the dojo in real time. But also those videos are available for them to go back and review over the past month and practice with it, take notes, do whatever they need to do with it. And then I'll talk about various topics related to Qigong. And I think that being able to have the information available is one of the biggest things, because everybody's really busy, so it might not always be practical to be at the Dojo of the Sun and Moon at 7:15 every Thursday for a public class. But what you can do is practice when you can, and the video of a real class is right there.
Or if they can only make it once a month, then you can catch up with the other ones.
Yeah, well, you can keep going, regardless of what your situation is.
If you can't make it every week.
Where can they go to get the videos and donate?
Go to the Patreon, and we have a Facebook page, Dojo of the Sun and Moon. We also have a private group which is open to the public. That information is there to the Patreon. Information's disseminated through that, and there's all kinds of options. If somebody wants to systematically study and become a recognized student, what we would call a recognized or a formal student of the system, they can do that. Or that costs more. Or if they want to be a direct student and have a personalized curriculum and private one-on-ones with me and that sort of thing, then there's that option as well.
Yeah, different levels of commitments or what you want to do.
So we're we're on Patreon, Dojo of the Sun and Moon. We're on Facebook, Dojo of the Sun and Moon. We're located in Oklahoma City, so we're pretty easy to find.
Yeah. One of the cornerstones that I saw was this idea of giving it.
Yeah, making it available.
You like donations, that'd be nice, but mostly it's making it available to everyone in the world.
Because you can show up every Thursday. I mean, you can go to the class and pay what you can if you just
we have a little donation basket, and if you want to throw something in there, please, by all means. And there's no minimum suggested donation. It just, if you want to throw 5 in, fine. If you want to throw 20 in, whatever, because that operates on what's known as the principle of Geisha, which is spelled in English Gisha, kind of like geisha, but it's not to be confused. And it has the idea, and without that principle translates into English as pay what you can. The idea is, I'm putting this out there. The universe is going to take care of it. If I'm doing something of value that's helping somebody, then they will give back what they can. It kind of has the idea of appropriate return.
Yeah.
It's kind of so that's the idea behind it. And the important thing is everybody, regardless of their circumstances, if they want self-healing and they want to work on changing themselves for the better, fancy word, personal transformation, if they want to go deeper and get into the mystical side, then it's available to anybody who wants to do it.
That's great.
So
I love that.
Yeah, I like the idea you're talking about, because that's kind of what I do with, I think, this podcast and my photography. I mean, that's something I've been struggling with, or at least trying to figure out how to transition to actually monetize it better. But it's like, I think that it's also, I'm still practicing it too. I think that it's like a kind of a system or process I'm going through with that. But it's like, I think that whenever you do stuff for people and you don't ask for anything in return, it's like, what's the natural response for that person? They're gonna want to do something for you too. I mean, that's just the way that we are, I think, as humans. So it's such a fascinating way to operate. I think it's like you were saying, if you give something, you're offering a valuable service of any kind. The universe is going to repay you, I think, in some way. And I like this idea too, because some people maybe want to come to your dojo and learn this stuff, and they're broke. They just are struggling to get anywhere, financially. But then so they can go there and still maybe not pay anything, but then the other people that are well off maybe throw in extra, that helps cover that person, so it's this kind of...
And that makes me think of some of those people, the whole purpose of a dojo is, on one level, it's there to challenge the individual to help them grow in a positive way. on a societal level, it's about building community, and it's run on a family-based system. In Hoshin-Dao Qigong, there aren't any ranks. You know, you're not white belt, you get yellow belt, you don't go through the Q ranks and then the various degrees of black belt. There's none of that. It's, you know, run off, you know, what they would be called a dojo or a Kwun system, and it's a family. The term Sifu is just kind of an honorific that means like honored father, because the idea is that everybody in the dojo is family, brothers and sisters. The sensei, to use a Japanese word and not a Chinese one, is kind of like the dad. Sensei literally means one who's gone before, you know, so the Sifu is somebody who's been entrusted with this information, and so he's kind of like dad.
Yeah.
His wife is called Sima,
Okay.
you know, so that's when I refer to Ophelia that way, even though she's been practicing Qigong for a year, but she's the Sima of the dojo, and so it's kind of like this whole family interaction gets going, because then what happens is that starts building community right there in the dojo, and you start taking that out. You know, you take those 6 perspectives, you take those 5 positive emotions, which you haven't talked about, you know, and stuff, and you try to change yourself, have you embody those, have that get really in tune with the energy of these ideas and concepts, and then that goes out in the world, and you know, so building community, building something positive,
Well, you're
and
planting seeds and seeing them grow in real life.
yeah, and in yourself, and as a result, you know, a good mood or a bad mood's contagious. Believe me, you know, and a good perspective or a bad perspective is contagious.
Yeah. So there is something I found from Glenn Morris that I thought was really good and appropriate for this moment. I kind of figured we'd get into this. But in that packet, like I said, it's online. It's Scribd. I've never heard of it before.
I don't know. It's probably something that's been pirated or put it up. You know, Glenn died on April Fool's Day.
Oh, wow.
Did he really?
Yeah. You know, he died. There for a while, I had a hard time accepting the fact that he had died.
Yeah.
And this was back in 2005, I believe. He's been gone for about 20 years now. And it was really devastating because he was healthy and nobody was expecting it. You know, and he, you know, kind of. And there was a lot of chaos that ensued as a result because, and I won't get into that kind of stuff, but it was very hard on everybody who was close to him when he passed, because what he gave me, and I was young when I was training under him, and I really didn't understand it. And you would ask me, you know, my understanding of the practice is much deeper as a result of keeping going, and you know, it was always there. You know, has literally saved my life over and over and over again. I'm not just talking about the martial arts that I learned from him or those kind of principles, just like saving my sanity, not being, I mean, we've all talked about there's like this drain underneath this man, and you get too close to it, it tries to suck you down, you know, and you can always feel that pull. You know, you can always, you know, the pull upwards is a little bit more subtle, and you have to pay attention to it and want it. It's kind of what, and I think that, I mean, but it just really, literally saved my life. Probably kept me out of getting into bad, you know, going down that drain, making that bad decision. Do you know what I mean? Especially playing music. You know how crazy it is out there, dude. I cannot remember. I cannot tell you how. And you probably knew a lot of these cats too. Just passed away, accidentally killed themselves with heroin and stuff. I went out to the desert and I come back and all these people are gone that I knew who were really great musicians, because apparently now there's a heroin epidemic in Oklahoma City again.
Oh, is this recent? I mean,
No, this was back when I got back. You know, this was a while back.
Yeah, like,
back 2014.
Yeah, the 2014. You know that. About then. I think it was about when I got back from the desert.
I remember. I know the fentanyl is the whole thing now, but
and that's the new thing. Good God.
But like, I didn't really realize about the heroin problem here back then, because I guess we had we stopped playing. Our group was over in 2012, so I mean that was.
I had a few friends that
we kind of fell
fought
off
with
music,
you know, and I was raising kids and stuff, so it's like
you kind of.
But I like this. There's an idea of like this idea of being a dad, and you know, and seeing and basically planting these seeds and seeing them grow and guiding, you know.
Yeah.
And the idea that now you can kind of go back and look at that time where you had your Sifu,
Yeah.
And you were like, oh man, I didn't even know what he was teaching me.
Yeah.
And now that you're older with the experience and being in the same position, you're like, oh, I see it. And then now you can give it.
Yeah, well, and because back then, I was really wanted to be a badass martial artist, and I was more worried about, getting, stripes on my black belt. That's what I wanted, but Glenn was always, he used the internal martial arts to bring people into the healing and energy side of it,
like
and that's what
kind
he
of
was
a
always,
trick.
always focused on with me, and I could never quite understand why. It was almost kind of like he was trying to
Like, don't worry
push
about
me
that.
away from that, and so instead of sending me to the Bujinkan to train, he sent me to the Chinese, where I learned Gong style Xing Yi Bagua, and learned a lot of really really interesting and deep Qigong practices that you're not going to get elsewhere, maybe, and then it all of a sudden, but once I'd done enough shadow work, it all of a sudden clicked and I got it. You know what I mean?
Ready.
Yeah, and that's really what it was. I had a lot of work to do, and he'd given me what's called my blue belt work, and that was, he felt that for the survival of the art, that it was really necessary to be able to interpret and express Hoshin from a Western mysteries perspective, aka Western Hermeticism.
Yeah.
And so that was my work to do, and it was pretty. And so I finally got that all done, and all that, and so that's where the dojo, the Sun and Moon, comes from. Was just from my blue belt work that he wanted me to do this. And because he felt that it was absolutely necessary that if the artist survived, and he was also a big fan of, he wanted to verify and always, if this is truth, if what we're teaching really helps people, his scientific mind is, well, do the Western systems agree with what we're doing here? Or is there an impasse? We need to know, and you having been a priest and being an initiate into the Western mysteries, he wanted me to do that work, because I served up until his death from 2000 to 2006. I served as the chaplain of the RU. We're non-religious, but I was more like an advisor. People having counseling. They're having cheese sickness, what's called cheese sickness. They're doing the higher practices, and they're running a lot of energy, and they start vomiting and stuff from the energy. So I deal with that kind of stuff. So that's what I did as the chaplain. But anyway.
Well, do you mind if I read this real quick?
Yeah, please. I'm sorry for getting off on a tangent.
No. I think it's great because this is kind of what he was talking about. I think, and this is an intro in what I found. I don't know if it was a book or anything, but it's an introduction. Glenn Morris. As the years go by, most of what amazed me in the beginning strikes me as parlor tricks now. The experience of energy works changes your perspective and perceptions over time. The experience of a Godhead becomes a so what in comparison to raising your children and keeping your career afloat. I can't say going through the Kundalini has brought me any joy. Most of my students and accidental impregnation have been interesting experiences. I am too curious and analytical a personality to be able to ride the waves of bliss forever. Perhaps that is a good thing, as so much is written from a second-hand experience which often reports opinion as fact. The psychological problems of being more aware are painful if you desire positive outcomes and rewards for your existence. There are many well-meaning, wrong-thinking, egocentric individuals who will go out of their way to attempt to denigrate your experience or defame your character. They suck up time and prevent you from working expeditiously. There are times when I long for a monastic life. It becomes very important to consider some of the magic and mythological applications of subtle energy. God helps those who help themselves. The major reason I formulated a scientific set of exercises to replicate my own experience was I was lonely. I didn't have anyone to play with except Hatsumi-san. Now I have a bunch of buddies, and more that I've developed through reading and experimenting on their own. It's a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah,
you're the baby bird from it.
Yeah. I didn't really think about, because it was, yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking about whenever you said that he saw something in you. I think he saw what you needed to be before you ever knew it, and that put you on that path to open this dojo and do what you're doing now.
Yeah, I guess,
I mean,
because, and that ties into this concept of giri. Giri means roughly, once again, I love Japanese because you can have one word, but it's a whole concept that you can write a book on if you want to. But giri means dutiful obligation. You acquire dutiful obligation. That's Giri. I see you're getting ready to make it up. But yeah, giri is dutiful obligation. In other words, it's an obligation, a debt that I accumulate because what I was given is something that I could never pay back, and I would not have gotten it on my own. I wouldn't have found it just reading books or doing my own thing. And like I said, what he gave me literally changed me, and it saved my life. I could never pay him back in a million lifetimes for what he gave me. And so out of giri, he writes in one of his books, how do you solve your problems? Giri. And I didn't get it back then, but because of what he gave me, I didn't even understand. He'd given me the ability to do certain things, he'd given me some certifications, and I didn't even really pay attention at the time when he get it. Once again, I was focused on martial arts and kicking ass, and then all of a sudden, how do I started realizing, what's really important is to be of service, kind of be open and just like be of service. And I was given something that literally saved me, and it's real. And then the way I got back into this is there was an event, something happened where somebody was in serious distress, was on the floor lying down, shaking and freaking out, and I had to use my Qigong and the healing that I had learned through my Soke and the teachers that he sent me to work with to help them. And as a result, people started asking me to teach again, and then I got the message, it's like, oh. Then it all clicked. It's like, so I opened up made the dojo public and started doing this out of giri, and so if I figure I can help one person, then it's all worth it.
I love that idea. It comes with the idea of like putting into your community, giving it something, giving it your skill, because you can't offer anything. I think that offering money is a lower form of helping. Because
it's like the easy way out to help someone.
I don't want to say that. I mean, if I don't have the time, I'm going to try to help you out. I think it's important
but it's easy to just, okay, here's some money.
Yeah. But
you
the
don't actually
idea
have to do anything.
is what we give attention to grows. What is the opposite of love? It's not hate. It's
ignorant or neglect.
Yeah, basically. It's
indifference.
Indifference. And this idea of giving your skills to a grown community, that community gets something out of it, but then you do as well by the effect that you have. I think that, give me a second, I'm sorry, I have a terrible memory. Glenn Morris, I think maybe you feel like it's obviously dutiful obligation, but from my perspective, it looks like you gave him a buddy to play with.
And he did.
Yeah, and what he gave you was a better understanding for the world, and so I think you did pay him back.
Yeah.
I think you paid him back every time you showed up and you were interested, and he wasn't alone in his research.
Oh, he had a lot of students. Man, it came back for me. He traveled all over the place.
Still came to you.
Yeah. Well, I went to him. The funny thing is, he lived right in Louisiana. At the end of his life. So. But I know what you mean as far as that. But no, what he gave me, what he taught me, what he passed on, the energy. There's this whole idea of transmission that you hear in Buddhist circles, meditation circles, and in Western mysteries, initiations is what they're called in the West. And that it's that energy that they pass on. If I hadn't gotten around him, if he didn't want to play with me, then I wouldn't have gotten it.
Right.
But it's the fact that he took the time and loved me enough, even though I didn't love myself or didn't even understand what that really meant. You know what I mean? Is priceless, you know, and the fact of it, you know, for somebody can't believe that I'm pushing 60, you know.
You always look good for your age,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, I'm
it,
telling you, it's the Qigong.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's,
you were telling us this when we were younger. You were
Yeah.
like, hey man, I got
Yeah.
something here. I was like, yeah, but I've got these drugs.
yeah,
I got alcohol. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty good.
yeah.
But now I'm starting to see, like, now
Yeah.
as an older person, obviously,
Right.
and coming into things, I'm like, I touch this again now this time in my life because we had to talk to you, but it's like, oh my God, this hits, you know, and maybe like you said before, sometimes you just gotta be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not the right time. Because I think that too, I mean, you know, similar to what I think we've been saying too, it's like we don't pay attention to so many things in the world. And I think what you're talking about, whenever you start seeing the same message over and over, I think it's your body is looking for that in a way too. Whenever you start to see things like that, but I mean, not that that's something that you need, and it's like something that you don't even know you need. But
Well,
it's,
synchronicities, but the
yeah,
universe
yeah.
will talk back
Right.
to
Yeah.
you.
I believe
agree.
highly in that. I think that, and it's something with synchronicity too that I thought a lot about, especially over the past pandemic years. Whenever I was inside, and it's like if you stay inside, that can almost never happen. You know, it's like if you stay in the house, you have to put yourself in the world. So you have anything happen to you.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, guess what? Even if you're in your house, you're in the world.
Yeah.
You're just not taking advantage of the beauty that's
yeah,
surrounding
absolutely.
you.
I think that, you know, something could happen. So you could come across something on the internet and it could change you, but like interaction with people, I think is the most important thing with getting those kinds of things. And I think that our bodies, like our bodies go into the world and it's picking up so much information that our brain is never, you know, we couldn't even possibly comprehend, or we do, but not consciously comprehend everything,
and-
all the information that we take in.
Yeah, well, getting into what I call the science, you know, calls it the subconscious. I call it
Yeah.
the unconscious mind
Yeah.
because you're not conscious of
Right.
what it's doing. It knows everything that's
Yeah.
going on. And that's one of the reasons why I'm getting ready to do a 6-week intensive course on what I call the Journey to Damo's Cave. It's a very powerful exercise that creates an interface, a way for you to interact and talk to your subconscious mind. You know, so that's part of the health of the mind
Yeah.
thing that you were talking about. We take care of the health of the body. There's all kinds of ways you do it. And we take care of the emotions, the heart, you know, because you're emotional. And then we also take care of the mind. Well, understanding yourself is being able to go deeper into these levels of consciousness that, from our perspective, are down below us, but they're actually the ones that are running the show.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just kind of riding the wave.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not even steering the boat.
Really
You're just
not.
up there like, man, I'm in control, and then somebody else is driving. You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure you are, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, and that results in, you know, a deeper understanding of yourself and greater creativity and all kinds of stuff when you start touching that kind of thing. Because what's interesting is the cave exercise. You know, a lot of people kind of think that when they first get into it that it's just a silly exercise on creative visualization, but then what happens is the meditation practice begins interacting with you.
Oh, what does this look like? What does this practice look like?
Well, it's a seated meditation. All right, so it's with your eyes closed, and you know, there's certain preparatory exercises that you will do to make sure that you're in a good space emotionally and mentally, like practicing the 6 perspectives. And then when you do the cave exercise, there, and I don't want to get too deep into it. Basically, you know, you go to a different place in your mind.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of creating.
Yeah, he talks about the cave exercises actually in his book, Path Notes of American Ninja Master. But the cave, you know, it's laid out in a certain way, but then you kind of decorate your cave the way that you want it. But then what happens is over time, but through consistent practice and doing this exercise, your unconscious mind begins interacting with you.
Yeah.
It starts inserting things that you didn't insert. Things start acting on their own that you're not controlling. It's the only, I don't know how to describe it. It's really wild.
It's interesting.
And so you can interface with it. Do you talk to it? Do you just look at it to understand? Or
It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You know, how it manifests for anyone, any one individual is going to be unique.
Yeah.
So it's like,
For example, for me, I won't get is like I remember right before I went through the Kundalini, I was doing the cave meditation, and I was sitting on a little bench, by a shrine, a little tiny church looking out on a pond on a monastery, and I was doing the cave exercise, and then this figure appears and is running back and forth and doing all this stuff in my cave, and this figure's wearing a kimono and has the traditional gear head up, the waxed hair with the pins through it, has cherry blossoms, and I could actually see it.
oh, like very clear.
Well, it's like I knew I could actually see it.
Yeah.
And this wasn't, and I didn't make up this character design, and I kept chasing this thing around, asking like, who are you and what are you doing? Just kind of interacting with playing, right? You go in the cave with a sense of play, and then the only thing that this person said to me was like, well, somebody has to clean up the place. And then the next thing you know, it felt like I felt like an electric jolt, like in my, right at the base of my spine. It felt like somebody had kicked me, and it knocked me off my seat onto the ground. And the meditation was over. A few days later, I went through the Kundalini.
So, that's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, and this is what you're trying to bring to everyone. You're trying to bring about understanding, a healing, and understanding
Self-healing
self,
and personal transformation.
and we can start on National. What is it called? Sorry, one more time.
Qigong.
World Tai Chi Day, April 27th, Saturday, April 27th at 10 a.m.
Yes. World Tai Chi Qigong
Yeah,
Day.
let's talk a little about it, because there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people involved.
Oh yeah, we've got a great group of presenters this year. It's been going on for 3 years now, and I'm really thrilled to be able to be a part of it this year.
This
One
is
of the
your first
sponsors.
time, being a part of it, and this is the third year. And this is the third year for the world. I mean, this is like an international thing, right? So
Yeah, it's an international
it's only been
thing.
the third year overall, too.
I can just read you a little bit what it says.
Yeah.
Is that on the last Saturday of April at 10 a.m. local time worldwide, events begin starting in the earliest time zones of the New Zealand, where the mass Tai Chi and Qigong teachings and exhibitions are held. Then, as the planet turns, events unfold all across Australia, Asia, Europe, Africa, North and South America, and finally ending in this worldwide wave of Qi and health education with the final events in Hawaii. The mission of the World Tai Chi Qigong Day is educating the planet on how to boost the world's immune system with scientifically proven natural health practices.
Nice.
You know.
And then can you mention some of the instructors?
Yeah.
I've got some here.
Oh yeah, well, like
You mentioned Gwen Davis. That was
Gwen
something you
Davis.
mentioned
Yeah.
coming on this interview, but can you talk to?
Yeah, she's teaching a 10-hour continuing education certification thing today, and had to have the space in the dojo because we share the space. She is a student from the Supreme Science School of Qigong, and she does a lot of other disciplines as well. And she's a really great person. She's given the dojo a home through which we can fulfill our mission, and we do intensive courses together. We team up instead of being competitive. We work together, and she's real awesome, and she's going to be warming the crowd up. Brett Schubert, who's a really great Tai Chi and Bagua player and Qigong practitioner for God knows how long. He's going to give the opening statements, and I love his perspective, and I think that's going to be really good. I'm going to go over, meditation with the 6 perspectives, which we've talked about. Gwen's going to do an opening cultivation exercise that kind of prepares the body for moving the energy. And then the old men, as I call them, the older Sifus are going to get up and go through their stuff, like, Rick Krause, who's awesome. He's going to go over Yang style Tai Chi long form, which was the form that was taught and developed for the Yellow Emperor, for the Emperor of China. That was the imperial quartz form of Tai Chi that they did.
It's funny, Rick Krause, I had never met him, but I tried to get, because he also does therapy, like talk therapy, I think too.
Mhm.
Like he's a therapist. What is the word I'm missing? Anyway,
Speech therapy?
yeah, kind of. Because I was looking to get into that last year, but I never did read. But I read a lot about him. And I learned. That's when I kind of first learned about Tai Chi at all, and I was like, "What is this? This is interesting."
Yeah, I believe he's a psychiatrist or psychologist
so
or
it's
something
like
like
a
that. He's
psychologist,
he's like
that's-
all these guys are like
Right.
doctorated and stuff. I'm like, I don't carry a doctorate,
Yeah.
you know, from a normal
But I
university.
saw his name on. I was like, I think I recognize that name. So it's great to see him like in all these other people.
Yeah, and then we have Master Van Tran. He is awesome. He does a form of Tai Chi. He's an acupuncturist, you know,
Okay.
and he does a form of Tai Chi that stimulates specifically the acupuncture points of the body. And unlike his style of Tai Chi only has two what they call forms or katas that go through it. So I'm really excited. I think that's really cool. And then Ed Cunliffe, who's, you know, does a bunch of stuff, and, you know, an old Aikido player and other things, and he's been certified. He's going to do the 10-step Tai Chi form, which is good for various things. And then Kwanasanti is going to go over 9-step child longevity Qigong, which I've never gotten a chance to experience. So I'm really excited. You know, a lot of really, really good, knowledgeable people are presenting at this year's event.
Seems like a lot of different types of, you know, you can probably go to this, even if you practice one or several, you can probably learn about some other techniques and different things too.
And it's a good place to kind of get exposed
Yeah.
to different, you know, people when they hear Tai Chi. It's probably whatever, if you haven't got into it, it's whatever you've seen
Yeah.
or been, you know,
Very-
in whatever form that is. Because there's all kinds
Yeah.
it's like there's all kinds of schools or styles of Qigong. There's all kinds of schools of Tai Chi. And, you know, Tai Chi can be looked at as like the great grandson of Qigong. It's a martial art, but it weaves the Qigong into it, which is really cool. And yeah.
Yeah. How long on average do you think this is going to last? Do you think it starts at 10? When do you think it might end?
Oh, well, it'll be done by 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, you know, we open the doors at 9:30, and there's about 30 minutes or so for people to mill, kind of talk, and then we're going to start the event. And then, you know, each instructor, it's going to be, I think, about 15 minutes, you know, per section, and they'll give everybody a good taste of what's going on, and it'll be done in a way that, regardless of whether you're an experienced practitioner of some form of discipline or practice, or you don't know anything, you'll be able to follow along and practice with everybody, and hopefully get exposed to it, feel some energy, and see how it makes you feel, see if it's something that resonates with you.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there. Yeah, dude,
April
I'm coming.
27th. Let's see, it starts at 10 a.m., but your doors open at 9:30. There's a recommended donation of $20.
Yes.
And it's at International Dance Studio, 3001 Northwest 73rd Street in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very exciting, and I just love being able to talk about this and share this event. I mean, that was kind of your whole idea, was just, you know, talk about it and spread awareness.
Yeah. And what was I going to say about that is, and also we have an online component this year.
Yeah,
This is the
okay,
first year that's being offered. If somebody can't come or isn't in Oklahoma City, but, you know, knows about it, they can go. There's a link on the Facebook event pages and all the information that we have out there that they can go to that link, make a donation, and they'll be given a link to stream in live to the event as it's going on, to either listen, participate, however you want to go about doing it.
That's awesome.
I love that. I love the freeness, the openness,
accessibility of it.
accessibility,
Great.
and to what would probably help all of us.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing is, I think that's kind of why I was really thought it was important to bring you to be on here, because I've been getting into some of this stuff, like I said, the mindfulness stuff, and I think it's just so important. It's hard to convince people to try stuff or anything. You bring up my meditation or any Tai Chi, and people are like, "No, what? No, they don't understand. They don't. They think it's."
Oh, well, gosh, things have changed. I remember
Yeah.
when I first started doing this stuff, if I tried to talk to somebody,
Right.
nobody had any clue what I was
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about. And then at the same time, then it was like, being here in the Midwest, Southwest, it tends to be pretty conservative.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Chinese witchcraft?
Right,
exactly. Yeah,
that
dude.
kind of stuff is like, oh, dude.
I think there's still a little bit of that mentality, especially here for sure. I mean, that's why it's like I don't really talk too much about what I do, and it's like I think you try to tell some people that I know and that I grew up with. If it's like I can think of telling some, like my dad, for example, it's like it's like I don't know, he would just not understand it at all or something. It's like and probably look at me like I was crazy. It's like, what? You just sit for half an hour and just close your eyes and don't do anything? Like, yeah.
It's called sleeping.
Yeah, I mean, and not sleep, you're awake and
Yeah.
conscious. I mean, it's weird, and to people that haven't tried it or whatever. So it's hard to talk about. But I'm thankful you come here and talk to us, and I think that our viewers and can get a lot out of this. Hopefully, people can become curious and try and go to this event, or just even pick up a book on meditation or.
Yeah, I mean, just whatever. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all kinds out there, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I remember
Yeah.
you sent me that is just like as far as the biggest challenges,
Yeah.
really raising awareness. Because most people, when you say Qigong, they have no idea what you're talking
Right.
about. Or traditional healing arts.
Mhm.
What?
Exactly.
And so getting it to being able to get it out there and present it in such a way that somebody can wrap their mind around, like, go,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's why I think
maybe
some
I'll
of
give
the-
that a shot.
Yeah.
And that's the most beautiful thing, is seeing somebody who does give it a shot, and you don't see them for a while, and then they come back.
You're like, wow.
And then you don't see them for a while again, and then they start coming back more consistently.
Yeah.
And they start talking about what's happening with them and how it's changing them, or the things, and I think that's a really beautiful, exciting thing to see.
Yeah.
And everybody that's done that has come back with being better, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody get worse as
Yeah.
a result of
if
it.
they
If
practice,
anything.
yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why in Hoshin Dao Qigong we're really, we're real all about, what's called the Kuden, or the oral tradition practice of the secret smile, which creates, it's an overall arcing practice that you're supposed to do your entire life, and it involves all kinds of things from exercises to stretching to perspective management is a good way to put it.
Perspective
Yeah,
management. I really like that. The idea that your perspective can be managed and you're not stuck with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it comes from, practicing child's mind. Another one I like is Shoshin, that walks hand in hand with child's mind, which is means beginner's mind. In other words, whatever you're doing, even if you're an expert at it, approach everything as if you're a beginner. You don't know anything about it. So if I go into a Tai Chi class, Tai Chi, Qigong class, some kind of more, I don't go, I got 3 black belts and I know what I'm doing. No, I go in there's like, I don't know anything.
Yeah, and it's like,
And that's how you learn.
Yeah, that's
Empty your
something
cup.
Yeah, empty your cup. Always a beginner is what Hatsumi would say.
That's,
I'm always a beginner.
Because I've heard a little bit about, I've read and learned a little bit about this, child's mind, beginner's mind, but something about, I've learned about teachers. If you're a teacher or somebody like that, like the best teachers are always the ones that are learning with the student. They're like, yeah, it's like you're learning, it's like you're teaching someone, but it's like their eyes are bright and wide, just like they're learning it for the first time. And I think this part of it is like learning it, seeing that the student learn something is kind of that visceral experience, or that vicarious kind of thing too. But I think that's the best way to be, because like you're saying, you're open to learning new things. Because it doesn't matter how long you've been doing anything, you're not a complete expert and know everything about it. It's just,
Well, even if you are.
yeah.
Let's pretend that you are.
Yeah.
Go into whatever you're doing is I'm a beginner.
Right.
And that way you'll be open, you'll catch things that maybe that you didn't before, and that's one of the things that we've been talking about. Like my personal experience with the practice over 25 years is it constantly changes. It's a living thing. And one of the makes it possible for me to catch things that I didn't before is because I approach it as a beginner. And from the perspective, try to, a child that's just playing and having a good time with it. And you're asking me is if I were to tell somebody something is like, I think the most important thing, those are the most important things you can do. The most important things, honestly, when you're first taught Qigong or a style of meditation or martial arts are the basics. They call them Qigong. These are fundamental principles. The most important stuff is taught to you first because it's that important. What we consider to be more advanced technique or higher practices are not as important as the stuff that you're taught as a white belt, so to speak. That's what's really important. That's the stuff that's going to save your life.
It's like the rest of the stuff is not necessary, I think.
Well, and also, if your basics, if your Qigong, whether it's meditation, aren't good and really solid, when you get to the higher stuff, it's either not going to work or you run the risk of damaging yourself energetically, or if it's in a martial context, you're going to get yourself killed because you've been taught bad technique and you never mastered the basics. And you wanted to get off into the cool stuff that looks really cool, and then that technique isn't really going to work necessarily if your basics are bad, because all that stuff has to be there.
Foundation.
Yeah, the foundation.
Something else I wanted to ask you was let me see. I've been running into the situation where it almost feels like going against the grain. I feel like that was my 20s. Like now that maybe hit my 30s, I'm more or less finding ways. Like, all right, man, let me follow this. Does that kind of make sense? Like comedy became a thing. It was like, let me follow this. Let me follow these emotions. Let me follow this idea. It's almost like there's a spark of interest in things directions you need to go. And I feel like I fought that in my 20s. Do you feel like opening yourself up? Because openness is a big part of this. Is opening yourself up and allowing even the good and the bad through allows you to see those and maybe find that spark and go towards the right direction. I would almost say like a fish goes with the stream instead of against it.
Well, that's the whole idea of, Taoism, or, there's a lot of, what I love about the Japanese systems and, the way Soke taught me, or Glenn, was it's very syncretic. It's non-religious. We consider worship a private matter. That's up to you. We don't necessarily need to get involved in that. But really, I was going somewhere with that. What did you just say?
So the fish going with the stream.
Oh yeah, well, going the way.
The way.
The Tao means the way. Going with the way, the energy of the universe. Go with the flow. Be mindful. Start paying attention to the great energetic cycles like the seasons and the astrology, maybe even, and what's going on. And you learn about these concepts like the 5 elements. And get to that point, like the old man in the desert used to say, do without doing. And that's also what's really weird. This is an American Indian, practice, but it echoes something that's said by the Taoist sages all the way over. And this all comes from shamanic practices. The same thing, be still. Don't do without doing. I've heard that even in the Qigong circles too. And so you find this idea from these old practices where it doesn't matter where it is in the world is echoed and even almost verbatim repeated, which is kind of interesting.
Like interesting lessons that are the same throughout different cultures.
Well, if you think about, hey, the universe works a certain way.
They're all, like I said,
nothing you can do to change it. It's going to keep doing whatever it does.
Are you in tune?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you
trying to fight against it?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Well, that's the thing is like I think the world, I think our culture at large, and especially commerce and corporations and any kind of advertising is mimicking what the world naturally wants to do to you to give you your purpose.
Yeah.
Here's McDonald's. Here's McDonald's over here. Here's McDonald's right there. Oh, I must want to go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Instead,
It's called programming for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a form of predictive programming. And people can read up on the psychology of it. But humans are creatures of habit, and that's why we're talking about the subconscious mind, why corporations use logos, aka symbols and stuff. That stuff gets anchored in your subconscious mind and then gets processed back up. Oh, I must really, I need to go to McDonald's today. I got a real hankering for McDonald's. No, you don't. It's just that
your mind just
loop
remembered
that's coming back. It's just at that time it's coming back around.
Yeah. I feel like now that I've kind of listened to I've had to be less static so I can listen more. I've been able to better go with the flow, find those interests, follow my nose, and the work that I have to do or that I end up in going that direction feels effortless. Yeah, the idea that like anything that I do for comedy is, I've never had this feeling where it's just like, I'll just do it. I would just do this. I love doing this. But I have to kind of fight myself to tell myself to get up and go to work.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, I gotta make money for this family. I gotta feed these people.
But it's
I
like
gotta
you're
do
not
this.
passionate necessarily about going to work.
Take the idea of play from this and I try to apply it to that.
Yeah.
Where I'm like,
as you
okay,
should.
I can't be kind of I'm going against the grain a little bit, but I know that it also feeds me. So let's just go have some fun, dude.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Like,
There's
let's
no reason
enjoy
to
what
go
we're
to
doing.
work and be miserable. You know,
Yeah.
even if it's something that you don't particularly care for. You know, how does that benefit you or anybody else?
Yeah, and in those moments when it is like, oh, this customer is terrible, or this is happening, and it's a little bit harder to, I have comedy to be like, all right, this is gonna be a great bit.
Yeah.
You know, or let me turn this around. Even
Like
in
you can try to do something.
Yeah. Any hardship I deal with now, I give it a little curly cue at the end and go like, oh man, I got these hemorrhoids. You know, I got this problem. Well, it's a real pain in my ass. It's an ass-tastrophe.
An ass task.
You see what
I
I'm saying?
like that. Yeah.
And that's like a new line I put in,
Yeah.
and now when I think about my hemorrhoid, I just go,
Yeah.
you know, and like changes the idea. I mean, it's still uncomfortable, but I mean, like anybody, you know, and it's
like,
it's
you
a thing nobody talks about, but it's prevalent. It's 1 in 4 Americans, and I feel like the unspoken is, you know.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny is that's one of the reasons why, and there's things that you can do, and I can share them with you. You know, is that one of the things, boy, how do you go into this? One of the things is when you cough, don't push out. A lot of people push out, you know, like, get in the habit of sucking your pelvic floor and your butthole in. And then cough, and because what happens sometimes is that can push those veins out, weakens the pelvic floor, and that's one of the things that in Qigong is that we do a lot of exercises where we're tightening the taint, so to speak, and all that, and that helps prevent stuff like that. And actually, I've cured hemorrhoids that way.
Well, I'm gonna go.
Literally, you push the vein back up, and then you tighten things up, and you kind of hold it. And then you make a habit of, start doing your belly breathing, tighten your pelvic floor. If you have to cough, I know this is a silly thing to talk about. It feels kind of funny. But no, seriously, man, and that might help.
So this is good.
Because the alternative is the alternative is like some of the stuff they do, like put a rubber band around it and let it die and fall off. That sounds real. I've known people who've had it. That seems really painful. But I've actually successfully taken care of hemorrhoids in my life at various times by doing that.
Yeah, and that seems a lot better than going to spend, whatever, $7,000 with some guy who's barely giving you attention. If we're talking about attention as a form of giving healing energy to something, I've never spent more money at a doctor and not felt attention. That's the only. I went to a doctor. This is every time I should go up, I'm like, hey man, I got this problem. It didn't fix. He's like, maybe we can open you up again. It's like, man, what are you? I'm in a car. Can we open up? Can we figure it out the first time? But it's there's a lack of attention in American medicine. That
they're kind of like biomechanics now.
Yeah, it's not even like,
It's not a I don't know. I'm not going to get it.
I am. I'm very frustrated with it because you walk in, spend $250, and then they're like, looks this. Let's give it 6 weeks, and they shoot you out the door. And like I said, I think attention is where you get energy from.
Yeah, it's like I think this is a great thing too, because Eastern, philosophies and medicine or whatever like that kind of these things can heal too, and different than our Western surgery, all this crap.
Well, it's really interesting is that the Oriental or the Chinese, the theory behind Qi is very holistic. They believe that if your energy systems are off, then it's going to affect the organs, the mind, everything, and then you might manifest a particular kind of illness. And so what they do is they treat the whole thing. In the West, we're myopic, we try to find the one single pathogen and then kill it. Or cut it out, and that's going to fix the problem. Well, guess what? If you're still out of whack, if your Qi, your energy isn't flowing well, your nervous system and all that stuff isn't working right, your body's not in shape, well, don't be surprised if the exact same illness manifests. And they've found that like Chinese medicine is better at dealing with a lot of like mental illness issues than Western medicine, and all of its drugs and stuff, is that a lot of it is about being balanced, a balanced human being, and we can get in. That's another podcast on how you can go about doing that.
Well, I'd be happy to revisit and come back, and good chance I'm going to this, but there's a good chance that I'm going to continue because I'm looking for that. David mentioned meditation a lot, and it helped him out a lot. I find meditation in my music and like writing.
Yeah, different things.
But I think there's something to. After I read that, I kind of just sat with myself, and I do that now, where I'm like, oh, I feel different parts of myself differently now because, like I said, there's not as much noise, and now that it expresses itself, through me now. I mean, obviously, I still have to kind of stuff things down just to kind of go exist in the world. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
But I think now I'm like, oh, well, I know I'm stuffing it down now. Yeah. Before I didn't know. I think that's how you exist.
If you do have a big issue, like something in yourself that you need to address, and it's very difficult, and you have to recognize it, but it might take a long time, but you can work on it and do different things. But if you just try to always push it down and not try to work on it ever, I mean,
then it comes back as a manifestation of the gut, and for me.
It'll manifest in your body, or I mean, just whatever.
You said the body holds, like parts of your body hold trauma. How is that expressed? I mean, if you don't get it cleaned out.
Oh, exactly. It starts manifesting in strange ways, strange illnesses, aches and pains. You develop a condition. Mental health. The way that's another thing. Is like how you think directly affects your overall physical health. Just like your physical health affects your mental health. So, and also the way you breathe, we'll talk about consolidating the breath, the breathing techniques and stuff, that affects your body and your health, because you're breathing real shallow, and you're using your upper chest, you're breathing slow and deep as a general rule, even when you're exerting yourself. Are you breathing through your mouth, which activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight-flight response, and gets you all amped up, a bunch of cortisol and adrenaline, biological speed running through your body, and you're all paranoid and freaking out and triggered? Or are you doing things to engage the parasympathetic nervous system, which creates a feeling of safety and peace, and helps you? It's by breathing in and out of your nose and touching the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. And if you engage in the breath, and just doing that helps engage the vagal nerve response and all the stuff which creates these feelings. Start coupling it with baby's breath, the breathing, then it becomes even more powerful, because right there you're affecting the mind, you're calming down the body, and you're affecting the breath, and you're getting more oxygen. Getting air down into the lungs. That there are places that most people that those lungs never get any air. It's all up high. And because of the high chest breathing.
Does it, as a muscle, start to atrophy over time? I mean, is that a thing? Like,
muscles. If you don't use something, you lose it. You don't use your mind, you're going to lose it. If you don't use your body, it's going to decline. I mean, we're all going to pass. At some point, this vehicle can't keep going. You got to lay it down at some point. But yeah, you know, how you treat it and what you do with it affects how long it can
Yep,
help you
keep
out.
going.
Yeah.
But that's what's crazy is like these old guys
Yeah.
that are still, they're still like Manaka Sensei, who is another student of Hatsumi, who was my teacher's teacher. He runs his own school, and I know a lot of guys in the Geninkan. He's like, God, he's pushing 80 or something, and he's jumping and rolling and teaching
Yeah.
people how to use katanas and exotic weapons and and locking them. I mean, it's amazing to
Yeah.
watch. And then if you get the opportunity to listen to him speak about some of this stuff, that's really illuminating too. You know,
He
he's
probably speaks like a much younger man that would then because of his, mental training and all
yeah, and
that.
you kind of look at pictures of him, you can tell he's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and to see pictures of an old man in mid-roll,
Right.
you know, flying through there doing a roll, that's or
Yeah.
blocking these young guys up and executing techniques, pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's
honestly.
something to this stuff, I think that's for sure, like with the health benefits. So I think that's it for the show. I don't know, is there
Yeah.
anything else that we didn't touch on that we wanted to bring up?
I don't think that. I just tell people find us on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, we got all kinds of things.
Where can
If you
people-
want to friend me on my personal page, Grayson Trice, you know, there's links all over the place. Dojo of the Sun and Moon on Facebook, on Instagram, on Patreon.
You post a lot too, or as far as on, you always post the weekly, events or your weekly class for sure. And
Yeah.
You also do one at a monthly Sunday.
Oh, that's right. The last Sunday of
Yeah.
every month, right down here,
Yeah.
not far from you, at Point A Gallery on 39th Street, I do Sunday afternoon Qigong from 2 to 3 p.m., you
Yeah.
know, just for the community here. Same public format as we do at
Yeah.
Spirit House on Thursday nights.
That's-
Pay what you can. Just come out and train,
I've been
man.
wanting to come out to that one because that one I can make. Thursday evening isn't too bad. I mean, it's great for most people, but I usually go to sleep at 7 p.m. because I work early in the morning, so it's difficult for me to. But I definitely want to come out to a Sunday afternoon sometime soon. I think I missed the last one. I thought about it that day and I was like, man, I should have went, but maybe this month.
Yeah. And we have classes every Thursday at 7:15 at Spirit House
Yeah.
Yoga at 50th and Chartel. If you're in Oklahoma City, if you want to join online, you can do that by going to the Patreon and signing up for the $5 a month.
Yeah. just
And
check it out.
and that's one of the reasons why I try to keep things as low as I can. And if you're interested in this stuff, I'm getting ready to do a 6-week intensive course on the journey to Damo's cave, which deals with the interface between your subconscious and your conscious mind. And once again, I only charge $200 for that, and that's like daily lessons and a weekly class and a conversation with me once a week if you wanted to talk about your practice, any questions, challenges, successes, whatever.
6
And-
weeks?
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Dude, that's not bad at all. Man.
Yeah,
that's
that's
a really
good.
good deal.
Yeah, well, like I said, at some point the price will go up,
Yeah,
but
but
I really, really want, and the thing about this is that there's a private discussion group, and all this information, all the videos, all the lessons I send you, all that is, as long as, are available to you forever. As
Yeah.
long as there's an internet,
Right.
you can go access
there.
those videos, and so you can
Yeah, that's-
keep that in your repertoire and review it and work with aspects of it as you deem necessary.
Nice.
That's what I was curious because you have a Patreon. So if you join the $5 a month,
The idea with the $5 a month is you have access to all those videos. They'll be up for a month and then it gets deleted, and we just kind of keep
Yeah,
moving
so
and
each
talking
month
about
it's
different topics
Okay.
and that sort of thing. Yeah.
yeah, I was curious because a lot Patreons I think can work in different ways.
Yeah,
like that.
well, but it's just that, that's now, if you
Right.
were like at a different tier, if we want to
Yeah,
talk
okay,
Patreon,
okay.
like if you're like systematically
Right.
studying Hoshin Dao Qigong, then any video,
Oh,
all
okay.
that stuff is
Okay.
in perpetua, it
Cool.
is available to you because
Nice.
you're what's called a formal student.
Okay,
You're
so that's-
you're publicly recognized as part of the family. You're not just I mean, you're a student.
Right.
You know, you're part of the family. That information is available to you.
I love
And
that.
also there's all kinds of, there's training manuals and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff that a student on that level gets. And so
Cool.
you're not in any danger of losing the information if you're serious about doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can get it.
Yeah.
It's available.
Yeah, and the thing is if you're just doing the $5 a month, if you just keep coming back and
Yeah.
doing the classes
That's-
and participate and reviewing and engaging in the discussion, you're going to learn a lot, you know.
It's a really good value
Yeah.
if you're gonna do it continually
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yes.
I learned a lot today.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
that's
gonna
awesome.
start belly breathing,
All right.
baby breathing.
Well, I think that's it for the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Grayson.
Thanks
It's
so
good to
much
see you
for
again.
coming.
Oh, well, thank you for
Really
having
do.
me. It was
Yeah.
a pleasure.
Yeah. Hey guys, how's it going? We're here doing a thing. We have a few upcoming events. First one we have is Put a Cork in It Comedy Prom. All right, this is the most fun we're gonna have at this venue. This is our first of the themed shows. You can show up. You don't have to dress up like you're at prom, but it's a fun thing. There's gonna be a winner for best dressed, based on some secret judges. All right, so nobody gets their butt whooped for
Yeah.
picking somebody. All right, and then we got Dave. He's gonna show up about an hour early, and we're gonna do prom pictures.
Yeah, so the doors are gonna open at 5:30, right? And
Yes, sir.
We'll take photos from 5:30 to 6:30 or
Yeah,
whatever.
and the show will start around 6:30, 6:40, like it normally does. We're gonna be participating. I'm gonna try to dress nice. Liz is definitely gonna dress better. And so the idea is step into an enigmatic. Okay. Anyways, step into an enigmatic world of laughter and intrigue at Put a Cork in It Comedy Prom, nestled in the heart of downtown Oklahoma City. Let the anticipation build as we transform your Friday night into a mesmerizing comedy prom. All right, guys, and our headliner. This is a super fun. Our headliner is a magician. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, dude, just like prom. That is John Shack. He's super funny. Then we got Curtis Newsome featuring, as well as Ashley Watson, and then I will be hosting. And then we're $10 in advance, $15 at the door, and that's downtown. Put a Cork in It, Bricktown Winery.
Nice.
Nice.
Perfect. That was awesome. Oh, okay, so that was on Friday. Same night.
Friday, yeah, Friday.
Oh yeah, the same night is Friday. So just after that. See, the problem is I'm gonna be taking photos there, and then I'm gonna leave immediately and go to Norman because Norman Music Festival.
Oh, yeah,
So
it's
I'm
happening.
gonna go down and try to catch some shows there. But I would normally go to this show, which is also down the street at Point A Gallery. It is date night with the Martin Duprass. The date night with the Martin Duprass.
Yeah.
And Second Chance 420.
Yeah.
Because they do like if you have a card, you can smoke in there and drink. So, anyways, so date night with the Martin Duprass is back. The show that tries to get you laid.
Has
I've been to
has it
every
worked?
one of them.
And?
I don't know.
They're doing their best. I don't know.
They're working with what
I'm trying
they
to
got.
work on myself personally, so
Yeah.
that's my own issue. We are stoked to present this month's stacked lineup of Brett Jennings, Jamie
nice.
Clark, Wampus Reynolds, and returning for her second date night appearance is Lynn Kay. So that's a great lineup.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
good
like I
lineup.
said, I'm gonna have to miss this one because I just can't. There's too much going on. So that's gonna be Friday, April 26th at 8 p.m. $5 cover at Point A Gallery, 2124 Northwest 39th Street.
Nice.
So that's it. Well, I guess we got one more.
One
You wanna do
more?
your other one?
All right, we have another show on the 27th.
Saturday, yeah.
The Saturday, which is also going to be the day that I'll be
Yeah, that night.
doing the Tai Chi stuff. It's going to be super fun. Rough and Ready Comedy Show, Saturday, April 27th at 7:30. Get ready to laugh your socks off at the funniest comedy event in town of Edmond. All right, here we go. Join us Saturday, April 27th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. at Rough Tail Brewing Co. for a night of nonstop laughter and entertainment. Our talented lineup of comedians will have you rolling in the aisles with their... Okay, guys, here's the deal. We got really good people. We got Shauna Blake, She's coming from Tulsa. Great headliner. Constantly works the Looney Bin. Then we got Cepeda Cheeks.
Also, is he from Tulsa?
Also
too?
from
Yeah.
Tulsa. I just saw him this past week whenever I went up to
you went
Tulsa
up there, yeah.
and killed it all over the place. Anyways, but I saw him working out some new hilarious
Yeah.
stuff. Dude, OJ, watch out. And then we've got Leo Mendes,
Yeah.
my heterosexual life partner, a good friend and writing buddy. And then
And
there's going to be
lawyer.
me, and lawyer, so watch out. And me, Nick Campbell. It's going to be at 320 West Memorial Road on Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Guys, please come out. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, this is gonna be the first one at Rough
The first one at
Tail.
Rough Tail. We have the ability for to hold 30 to 40 people, or if we have enough tickets,
Okay.
100 to 150.
Nice, yeah.
So
it's
they have a
really
small
big
room or an open room. Either way, we're bringing both speakers.
Nice. All right. Well, that's it for the show this week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, thank God for standing.